Welcome to the video version of the introductory AEP Works 3 training session. This introduction will cover how to perform a few basic actions in AEP Works 3. Before we talk about setting up a project in AEP Works 3, we'll first go over what printer configurations are, as well as how to use them. In AEP Works 3, you can specify what settings you want the printer to use. It is possible to export these settings as a file which can be installed on the printer manually through USB. You can also create project-specific printer configurations, which will be automatically applied to the printer when an application is installed. From this screen, it is possible to choose which settings will be applied to the printer, as well as which settings will remain the same. Next, we will take a look at how to set up a workspace. There are a few things worth noting here. For instance, the name field is used to input the name of the workspace, and the version field is meant for inputting the version of the application. A short description of the workspace can be input into the description field, and the author field is used to display the name of the person who made the application. Finally, the target field is used to indicate which printer the application is being developed for, and the firmware field is used to indicate which firmware is being targeted. These fields are important for making sure that the application works as expected when running on a SATO printer. Next, let's have a look at the Assets screen. Let's go over all of the different types of assets that can be contained within a workspace. First of all, tables are a way of storing data in the printer. For example, you might want to save your product data. You can do so in these files. They have a structure similar to Excel files, and it is possible to import Excel sheets as tables to the printer. Scripts allow us to further specialize the application to our liking. We could, for example, create scripts where we go to a cloud-based web service and fetch new and updated product data to use when printing. We could send emails, highlight allergens in an ingredient description, or receive data on the local network to receive print jobs, etc. We use a scripting language called Lua 5.1. This is somewhat similar to JavaScript and would require further training to be able to use efficiently. Profiles are printer configurations that can be applied to specific labels. Label and screen images are pictures that can be displayed in labels and screens respectively. You can add any custom font to the application and use it for any label within the application. Newer printers have the capability to display videos on the screen. This could, for example, be instructions of how to use an application. Packages are files that contain the entire application and can be sent to the printer to install or update the application. Finally, Other is reserved for any files that don't fit within these predefined categories. Next, it's time to create a label. We do this by clicking Labels and then New Label. When creating a new label, there are a few fields that need to be filled in. Some of these fields are self-explanatory, but others might require a bit of clarification. Default table is the table that will be automatically loaded when printing this label. So for instance, you could have a text field that references one of the columns in the table, and that'll be printed onto the text field. Profile allows you to set the printer settings for individual labels. This will require you to already have one created. If this is set to none, then the printer will use the settings already in place on the printer. Let's go over the various fields that can be applied to a label. First up is the text field, which displays regular text on a single line. Next up is the field text box, which is multi-line text inside of a box. The text box field also reduces the size of the font to fit the box. Next up is the field currency, which has the functionality to change the formatting of the currency along with which currency, depending on the local settings of the printer. After that, we have the field counter, which will simply increase its count for each label printed. Beyond that, we also have time, which has numerous different time formats along with dates as well. There are also image fields, which simply place a label image onto the label. Next up, we have the barcode field, which can create a barcode from data. Finally, we have a few geometric figures: line, square, ellipse, and grid. You can use these geometric figures for your labels in case you need a divider between different fields. Now, let's talk about field properties. Every field has a different set of properties that can be changed to customize the appearance and behavior of the field. The layout properties are fairly self-explanatory, so let's take a look at the source properties instead. The source determines how the field gets its value. The value is what is shown on the label. With the source set to fixed, the value will be whatever the app developer writes. Setting the source to copy allows the developer to copy the text of another field on the label. Concatenate allows the developer to paste together the value of multiple fields into a single field. It is also possible to change the source and formatting of the concatenated fields. Counter simply increments for each label printed within a batch. By using counter, it is possible to keep track of how many labels you've printed in total. By using time as a source, it is possible to print the date and time of when the label was printed. The date and time can be formatted in a wide variety of ways. Table can be used to display data from a table within the workspace. If this option is selected, the developer has to choose a row from the table that will be used for the label. It is possible to do this either by directly inputting the row, through screen selection, or through scripting. After this is done, the developer sets the column that will be displayed in the field property. When a row and a column have been chosen, the field displays the selected data from the table. Scripts are by far the most versatile sources of data, and as such, are also the most complex. The possibilities for scripting are nearly endless. Almost anything that is not hardware related can be solved through scripting. Screen allows the developer to access values from a screen that was previously visited. For example, it is possible to copy user inputted data from a screen to a field in the label. Setting the source to variable will copy the value of the field from a variable. Input means that the printer will generate a screen which will ask the user for an input. It is usually better to do this by utilizing screens instead, as you cannot design the screen that this option generates. Finally, list is a lot like input, however, it will allow the user to select from a list of options instead. Next up, let's create a screen. Screens are what the user sees when navigating the application. Just like with labels, you can have multiple screens within a workspace. There are 4 different types of screens: normal, splash, start, and preview. The start screen is the first screen that the application will show. You can only have one start screen active in your workspace. If you create more than one start screen, the previous one will be set to a normal screen. The splash screen is shown by the printer when the application is loading. This most commonly happens when the application is being started. The preview screen can show how a label will look before it's printed. Each workspace can only have one preview screen. Finally, normal screens are screens without the properties of other screen types. You cannot create a normal screen without having a start screen in your workspace. Before we get into the various fields that a screen might use, let's first have a look at the screen properties. Name is the name of the screen, and height is the height. For the FX3 printer, 726 pixels is the minimum height of the screen. If you have anything higher than 726 pixels, the screen will have a scroll bar. The top bar checkbox will display a top bar on the screen. The top bar contains a back button. The autofocus checkbox makes it so that the first input field on the screen is selected automatically. The Lua fields are used for executing scripts at different times when the screen is loading or exiting. Background image can set the background of the screen, and background color can set the background color of the screen. Now let's talk about the various fields that can be dragged onto a screen. One of the most useful fields is the button. The button has a wide variety of usage areas. These include, for instance, directing you to a new screen, starting to print a label, starting a video, running a script, or editing a table, among many others. Grids can be used to make a selection from a table and then perform an action with that selection. You can, for example, use a grid to make a selection of a product to print onto a label. Next up are text fields, which work exactly the same as they do on a label. Input fields are text fields that the user can type into. The data from an input field can then be used for anything the developer wants. Screen image fields allow you to put images on your screen. Any image that the developer wants to use has to be imported from their PC. Combo boxes share functionality with grid fields, although they are different in appearance. It is possible to choose between different types of combo boxes, such as lists, tables, and dropdowns. Just like with grids, combo boxes can be used to allow the user to make a selection from a table. Finally, lines can be added to clarify the layout of a screen or create divisions between separate fields. In case you have a lot of screens and different labels which might be hard to keep track of, you can use the Screen Workflow tool. This shows you the flow of the application, which screens go where, which label is connected to which screen, and so forth. In bigger projects, this can be quite helpful, as it allows you to get an overview of the entire flow of the workspace. Thank you for watching this introduction to AEP Works 3. For more information, you can visit the official SATO website.